Hello! So today we're going to be running a can of engine flush through our engine. We're then going to change the oil and filter and then put the side panel back on. So let's begin! So nice and simple today. We've just got our oil, our filter, engine flush, strap wrench, which we probably won't need. We've got our torque wrench. We've got our socket and small wrench so we can undo the oil plug, and then we've got an Allen key just to remove the side panel. So the first thing you want to do is consult your service manual to find out exactly how often you need to change your oil and filter. This book recommends for this model that I should change the oil every 8,000 miles and change the filter every 2 oil changes. So I actually change my filter every time because I use a can of engine flush. And it suggests you remove and replace your filter every time you flush your engine. So let's begin. Well, the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is jot down the mileage on this bike, which is currently 3474, and that way, after we've written that down, we can keep a note of it somewhere and know next time we've got to change the oil. So let's begin with the process. So my can of engine flush says it must be applied to warm engine oil, so we're going to warm the engine up for 5 minutes. And then we're going to pour this in, leave it for a further 10 minutes on idle so it can flush around the engine, and then we're going to drain it, which the service manual also says that you should drain the engine oil once the engine's warmed up. So we're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So 5 minutes on idle. So, the engine's now at 72 degrees, which is perfectly warm enough to put this engine flush in. So let's go do that now. Well, flushing your engine with oil flush really is incredibly easy. All you're going to do is remove your oil cap, which is as simple as that. And then we're just going to pour in our engine flush. Now this stuff is incredibly nasty, so try to avoid getting it on your hands or anywhere near your eyes. So the engine flush needs to circulate the engine for about 10 minutes to clean everything. So it's now 2:55. So what we're going to do is start the engine up, and while the engine's running for 10 minutes we're going to remove the side panel. So let's begin. So, we've removed the side panel and we've flushed the engine with the engine flush. Now what we've got to do is put a bucket or container of some sort under the bike, and we're going to remove the oil sump plug. There will be a washer on there, usually a spring washer, so we've got to make sure we don't lose that, so be very careful when undoing the plug. So this is the bolt, also known as the oil sump plug, and it's usually located on one of the lowest points of the bike. So you can also see a little washer on there just above. That's what we're going to be removing next. So, now that the oil's finished pouring out, what we're going to do is pull off the filter. Now, if the filter's on there very tight, then we'll use the strap wrench, but if not, we'll do it by hand. So, let's see how we get on. This here's the filter. So it's just started raining, so we're going to have to get a move on. The book says we need to tighten the oil plug back up to 20 nm, and then we're going to put the new filter on. But before we put the new filter on, what we're going to have to do is put a layer of oil around the rubber seal, just so it doesn't pucker up and leak. So let's begin, and quickly. So we have our new filter. You simply remove the case and then you've got this rubber seal. You just grab a bit of oil and give it a layer around the edge, and that's going to be what stops it from puckering and leaking. So just grab a bit more around the edge there, and now this can be screwed on. And you're only going to do this up to hand tightness. Beautiful. And that brings us to the final stage, which is putting in the fresh oil. So you'll need to find out exactly how much oil you need to put in, and dependent on whether you've changed the filter or not. You can find this out in the service manual. Alternatively, most bikes will have a placard which tells you how much you need, and on some models of bikes they also put the information under the seat. So as you can see here, it's got the engine and oil filter requirements. So the information's easily available. Right, let's put in the new oil. So, that's the oil and filter completely changed and the engine flushed. All that's left to do now is start the bike up to get the oil moving around. You may notice the oil light sometimes stays on for a couple of seconds. This is completely normal, and that's just while the oil is getting around the system, so let's see. Right, that should go out. Perfect. Now if we just prop the bike up again, you'll see that the oil is no longer in the lines, and that's because the oil's just circulated and gone around the filter. So we're now going to need to take the cap back off and top up so it sits between the two levels, and then we're done. Do it. Perfect, just in between the two lines. So for most of you this will be a very familiar exercise, changing the oil and filter, but I hope there's one piece of information you can take away from this video. And just one final thing I am going to mention: when you put the side panel back on, or generally any nut or bolt, it's always good to put a bit of copper grease just on the nuts and bolts. That way when it comes to removing them in the future, they're easy to come off. So something to keep in mind. I'll see you next time.